Welcome to Italics, television for the Italian American experience. I'm your host, Anthony Tamburri. Dr. Joseph Shore chats with ethnomusicologist David Marker about an Italian immigrant's bagpipe instrument known as Zampogna that they helped a descendant donate to the New York Historical Society and is now on temporary display. This unusual instrument was brought to the United States in the early 20th century by Rocco who is known as New York's latest Italian bagpiper.
David.
How's it going?
Pretty good. How you doing?
I'm doing well.
Good. We're here to talk about this amazing object, right?
Rocco Costello.
Rocco Costello.
Although that was the changed last name. I think it was Castelli.
Right.
Was the original name when he was in Italy. And at some point it changed to Costello.
So we had this great opportunity to get this object and get it donated to the New York Historical Society.
Yeah.
So you've done a lot of work in getting that history in place for the Historical Society, and because of the work that you're doing as an ethnomusicologist, you're at CUNY Graduate School. Talk a little bit about the background of the Zampogna, where its origins and how it was used and what it's about.
Historically speaking, the Zampogna is a shepherd instrument, played in pastoral and agricultural communities throughout southern Italy and Sicily. It's found in rural, typically mountainous towns. And if you see the instrument, you'll know that because the bag is made out of goat skin. It's an ancient instrument. You don't really know exactly when it came into fruition in its current form, probably sometime in the late Renaissance or the Baroque era. But basically, it's a reed pipe. It's a reed instrument using either single or double blade reeds. It's an aerophone. And it has a lot of different cultural uses, which we can discuss, and we can discuss those also within the context of Rocco, because he played the Zampogna.
Most people watching might not know that Italy has bagpipes, right? Everybody understands it from England, Ireland, Scotland, and that area there.
Yeah,
but it's pervasive throughout Europe and elsewhere.
Yes, so bagpipes are found all over the Mediterranean area. Any like continent that comes in contact with the Mediterranean, you find bagpipes. So North Africa, West Asia, and pretty much most of Europe, even parts of Northern Europe, have bagpipes. We're mostly familiar with the Scottish bagpipe, which was diffused throughout the world with the British Empire. And probably if you go back far enough, the Scottish bagpipe was also a shepherd instrument that sort of morphed into a military instrument, almost like a weapon of war to some extent. The Zampogna is distinct amongst world bagpipes because it is a double chantered bagpipe. Most bagpipes have a single chanter that plays the melody line, whereas the Zampogna has two separate chanters, each chanter played by one hand. And that gives the Zampogna the ability to effectively accompany itself. You can play syncopated rhythms, you can play melody and harmony parts on the same instrument. And so I think that's one of the things that for me makes the Zampogna really unique and really an interesting instrument with respect to other bagpipes.
Often what you see are these prints where the Zampognati would come down from Christmas and play in front of religious statues, mandonine, the sort of shrines that you find on the street, in front of the presepi, the Christmas nativity scenes. In some people's minds, it's become associated with that Christmas season.
Today, one of the main uses of the Zampogna is for the novena, which is 9 days of musical prayer. and that is played leading up to Christmas. In some areas, it's also played leading up to the Immaculate Conception on the 8th of December. But it's definitely played in most areas where you find the Zampogna. It's played 9 days leading up to Christmas. That's probably the main use of the Zampogna today. It's this sort of devotional component of the instrument. But it's also used for more secular purposes as well, or historically has been used for more secular purposes, such as dance music, providing a festive atmosphere, and then also for accompanying singing, whether it's just at a party or also it was used for accompanying serenades, the classic serenata, that you would do below the balcony of the woman of interest. Those are the main uses of the Zampogna.
And then the Zampogna, because of the great Italian migration from the 1880s all the way up until, say, the 1920s and even World War II, the Zampogna comes to the United States, and in particular, New York City with Rocco.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about Rocco.
Rocco was a shepherd from Basilicata. This is the story that was told to me by his grandson and his daughter, who I had the fortune of interviewing. He came to the United States, I think, when he was in his early 20s. He was from a small town, Armento. He comes from this tradition of shepherd bagpipers, which was very common throughout southern Italy. There was a number of immigrants that brought Zampognas to the United States. There's other stories that I've heard of. Every now and then, an antique Zampogna will pop up in someone's attic or something. It's not a common thing, but there was definitely immigrants that came to the United States that played the Zampogna. And Rocco was one of them, and fortunately it's a well-documented story, and now the instrument's in the museum. When I spoke with Rocco's daughter Susan and Rocco's grandson Gabe, they explained the uses of the Zampogna by Rocco, and it was the classic uses. He used it to play the novena. He would go around the apartment buildings in Greenwich Village and go door to door and play this devotional music, and it sounded like he also played dance music. And when we listened to the recordings of Rocco that were done in the 19-teens and 1920s, we hear these same classic traditional Zampogna tunes that you would find throughout southern Italy.
You've said that the first recording of a Zampogna is done here in New York City.
Yes.
And you suspect
that it's Rocco.
Yeah, because he's not identified.
Yeah, on a lot of these early ethnic recordings they would do, like by Columbia Records and some of the big record companies of the turn of the century, they would not credit the musicians. However, there are some recordings that are credited that have Rocco's name on them. So in listening to the recordings that we know are Rocco, and then also looking at the photographic evidence of the instruments they had and what key they would have been in, I feel comfortable saying that a lot of the ones that aren't credited with Rocco, the unlabeled ones, are actually Rocco as well. The oldest recording that I'm aware of is from 1916 that was done in New York City. There's two sides of the recording, the 78. And I feel pretty confident that it's Rocco and one of his friends. They would play in pairs. One of them would play the Zampogna, and then one of them would accompany the Zampogna with the charamella, which is like a little folk oboe or shawm. And they're beautiful recordings. The piping on them is exceptional quality, in my opinion, as someone who plays the Zampogna. Just the fact that we have so much rich history of the story of Rocco, and also we have these recordings of him playing, and the fact that those are the first recordings of the Zampogna, period. I mean, the ones done in New York City were done before any recordings were ever done in Italy.
Right.
The Italian recordings don't start coming out until like the 1950s or so, when Alan Lomax went and did recordings. But we have these incredible documents that are now over 100 years old of the Italian bagpipe, and it's pretty cool that they were done in New York City by immigrants, Italian immigrants.
Right. And I think what's really important about this object now being in a museum, in a kind of prestigious, venerable museum, is that it becomes this occasion for unpacking a whole world, a musical culture, a ceremonial culture, and an immigrant culture in a place like New York City, rich with all of those things, but then now get, tied to and linked to this one object that can get featured in different ways and presented to a general public, and that this information is able to get framed around this one singular object. And I think it's so important because, as you said, you hear of people who have their ancestors' bagpipe in their attic or in their garage, but there's how many have been tossed out over the years, or just like people not even knowing what the hell this thing is and just getting rid of it. I feel particularly proud that collaborating with you to get this object and for you to have done the documentation to pull all this story together is a great accomplishment.
I think it's a real honor to be able to tell Rocco's story, and his Zampogna is such a crucial part of that. I mean, the Zampogna tells the story. You just look at the thing.
The object's there now, it's safe, it's preserved, it's on display. What's next in telling Rocco's story? Is there anything that you're interested in doing?
I play the Zampogna, and I've been to Italy multiple times, and I've played the Zampogna in Italy. I've also played the Zampogna in Brooklyn for Italian Americans. So one of the things I'm interested in doing is better understanding the use of the Zampogna in facilitating these devotional beliefs that many Italian and Italian Americans have. I'm trying to tell that story, which I think fleshes out what Rocco was doing. Like, why was the Zampogna so important to Rocco? Why was it like the only thing that he brought with him when he came to America on his first trip over? I guess it was his only trip over. Why did he, hold on to it for all these years? Why was it in the family for so long? It's almost like a venerated object. And that is because of its association with these devotional belief systems. And the Zampogna was really integral for facilitating that for Italian and Italian Americans, especially for the Italian Americans that came over here to a whole new environment. I think that the Zampogna was almost more important for them because it gave them that cultural and spiritual foundation that they otherwise might have lacked. So Rocco was performing a very important role in his community, and it was his Zampogna that enabled him to do that. That was his tool.
And I would suspect that there was, especially for those immigrants that he played for, a kind of deep emotional resonance to just hear those kind of opening notes, or even the tuning of the Zampogna, of people like it really taking them back, and not only taking them back to their ancestral town, but also creating kind of space that they kind of occupied and owned.
A lot of these immigrants came from rural areas, and here they were in the most urban area. And I think the Zampogna probably helped give them maintain a connection to their ruralness. One of the frequent recordings you hear on these early turn of the century 78 recordings is the pastorale. That's the pastoral. And so the music of the Zampogna is evocative of the pastoral setting. And so it's interesting that these guys were coming from the countryside, living in New York City, and they're playing pastorale. Even though they were very far from the country, they were sort of bringing the country into the people by playing this music that was evocative of the mountainous regions of southern Italy.
What does it feel like to play the bagpipe? How do you feel as a musician doing that?
So I've been playing the Zampogna since about 2007, and I've played all over the United States, and I've played all over Italy, all over southern Italy for the most part. And I've also had the privilege of playing the novena. I've had the privilege of, helping to facilitate people's devotional belief and spiritual, devotion in Italy around Christmas or the Immaculate Conception by playing the novena with the Zampogna. The Zampogna is really unique. It's like a full sensory experience because while you're playing it, you're also breathing into it. So you're sort of like hooked into the instrument. It's like becomes a part of you in a certain sense because you're breathing into it, you're squeezing the bag, both hands are on a chanter. So there's this like syncopated component with a rhythm that you really have to be dialed into it, and then with your own breathing at the same time. It's very immersive musical instrument to play, I think, compared to other instruments. I mean, all instruments are immersive to play, but I think the Zampogna in particular, there's something special about it. And then the sound is a very full sound. And it's not just a singular sound. You've got, 4 or 5 pipes playing at the same time, in tune with each other, with all of these harmonic frequencies and overtones overlapping on top of the sound. For me, it's almost addicting, when you have a Zampogna that's in tune, especially if you were the one who made the reeds for it, and you're the one who put it in tune. There's a satisfaction of playing it that I'm sure, Rocco experienced, because, when I read the New York Times interview with him and I see the photo, and you listen to the recordings, I mean, this guy was like totally into it. You could tell he was totally into it. So I can relate to that. And that's one of the reasons I enjoy telling Rocco's story, because I can relate to his story personally in certain aspects.
Have you felt like you've had to do exercises or stop smoking or sort of like do something to be able to, play the Zampogna?
No, and the smoking thing's funny. I don't smoke, but
Okay.
there's a lot of Italians who smoke, and there's a lot of Italians who smoke and play the bagpipe.
Right.
And I'm like, how do you do that?
Sure.
But no, I mean, it's definitely something that takes time. The first few years you play, you think about your breathing more, but as you play, it becomes second nature. You don't even really think about it unless you're like really tired. You have to remind yourself, it means it needs more air. But you have to find that equilibrium with the reeds, because the reeds require a certain amount of pressure to get them vibrating. And so you've got at least 4 reeds in the pipe.
Right.
So they all have to be vibrating at sort of an equal pressure.
And then the other thing is about tuning, because I see when you play and I've seen others, they're sort of adjusting
The drones.
The drones. How does that work?
Yeah, well, you're effectively lengthening the pipe.
Okay.
So the longer the pipe is, there's a slide, kind of like a trombone. When you slide the trombone out, the pitch drops.
Okay.
It gets lower in pitch because it's a longer air column that's vibrating. So when the air goes into the reed vibrates the air column in the instrument. And that's what creates the note. So the longer the vibrating air column is, the lower the pitch is. So when you pull the drone slide out, you're lowering the pitch, or when you push the drone slide in, you're raising the pitch. Now the other thing is you have to tune all the individual holes, the finger holes. And each hole has to be tuned individually. And you do that with beeswax. You have to put beeswax in the holes. And so when you're putting wax in the holes, you're constricting the hole size. So the more constricted the hole is, the smaller the hole size, it effectively creates a longer air, it makes the pipe longer.
Okay.
And virtually speaking. So it lowers the pitch. And then if you take wax out of the hole, it raises the pitch. Just a little bit. These are like micro measurements. But the Zampogna has to be perfectly in tune because all the pipes are playing simultaneously. if something's a little out of tune, you're going to hear it. There's going to be this wavering.
Yeah.
It's very easy to have an out of tune bagpipe. It's difficult to have an in tune bagpipe. And each pipe maker makes them a little bit differently. Each Zampogna is a little bit different. So you have to hand make the reeds tailored for each instrument.
Right.
I can't go online and buy reeds for my Zampogna. I have to sit there and like shave little pieces of plastic or cane and cut little tubes and put it all together and make these delicate little reed objects that make the instrument play. And those have to be made specifically for the pipe that I'm trying to make sound.
È nell'ultimazione, perciò la stavo terminando. Siccome ho voluto inserire il mio nome, ma
Questa è la nuova Zampogna che hai fatto?
Sì, sì, sì.
Bellissima.
Sì, buono, è come quella. Allora, vedi, si prende questa, ad esempio, perché questa è già pulita, perché non ci sono le spoglie più fatte. Allora, si prende secondo più o meno una certa misura, così più o meno, vedi, e si arriva quasi a metà, vedi, si gira un pochettino così, vedi, fare questo movimento. Quando arriva quasi a metà, vedi, si solleva un poco così, vedi, ed è aperta.
You have a sense of where Rocco's bagpipe was
Where
was
the
made?
wood's from? Yeah, it's from somewhere in Campania. There have been some names thrown around by some of my Italian friends. There was this well-known pipe making family, the Tremarco. I don't remember exactly what town they were from, but it was probably in like the province of Salerno. I think maybe in Polla, the Tremarco family. And so that's sort of like the Stradivarius, if you will, of Zampognas in that area. Like the best pipe making family was the Tremarco family. And some of my friends in Italy who have looked at Rocco's Zampogna have said that either parts of it or the whole thing is from Tremarco.
Questo è il gelso nero. E questa è Erika. Ha capito? Sì.
We talk about the great wave of migration, 1880s up until 1920s or World War II, but Zampognati came after World War II with that second wave of immigration from 45 up until 70s and 80s.
As far as I know, there's never been a second generation Zampogna player. I don't know of an instance where there was an immigrant that brought the Zampogna to the United States and one of their children or nieces or nephews or whatever took the instrument up. It's never passed down a second generation.
Right.
Which is unfortunate.
Indeed. I mean, I wonder if it's because even though there's this historical Italian context and then there's this new world, New York City context, that context really doesn't allow itself to be perpetuated. Even though it gets used for social events and it gets used for religious events, it doesn't sort of perpetuate itself in the same way. And also because we know that the organetto, the sort of button accordion, even in Italy, supplants the Zampogna over time.
Not just in Italy, but all over the world, where you find bagpipes, you typically also find accordions. The accordion came later, and oftentimes it replaced the bagpipe, and so the bagpipe went into disuse. Because the accordion is just so much easier, it's always in tune.
Right.
You know? You don't have to tune it, it's much lower maintenance instrument.
So I wonder if that contributes, all those things sort of contributes to the idea that second generation Zampognati in the United States doesn't exist.
Yeah, that could be. And also maybe the devotional elements that were used with the Zampogna to facilitate that didn't transmit as much down the second generation.
Right. This has been great. There's a lot of information there that's now been revealed, not only just us chatting, but in the work that you've done in documenting Rocco's Zampogna.
Yeah, I'm thrilled that it's in the museum, and hopefully it gets a lot of attention there and they continue to support it.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Joe.
Thanks for watching this episode of Italics. I'm Anthony Tamburri. Arrivederci alla prossima puntata.